Yeah, and I just want to add that as an American who's worked in scores of countries, people always think you're CIA. Like they just assume it.
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about is, you've got an American passport. You can get out, and hopefully the American embassy will get involved. What about your sources? What do you do to protect them? Because you've worked on some very sensitive issues. Corruption, you've worked about LGBT issues, and that's quite a group that's discriminated against terrifically.
Yeah, well, project like corruption, again, you have a choice. You could go with a huge lens, and then you produce stuff that, not really going to change anyone's opinion. Here's a golden toilet bowl or a yacht, that's how you expect corrupt money to be. Or you could do it more conceptually. So I did it more conceptually, and I had nothing to hide. I wasn't after anyone in particular, at least on the ground. So so you kind of solve that puzzle before you go. And because there's enough, again, photography has a limited toolkit for what you can do, because again, you can't go in the past. You can only do what's in front of you and what you think might happen. So you have to solve those if you want to go into problems like corruption, you have to be a lot more creative than I'm gonna do a stakeout and look for that envelope under the table, right? Like there's no value in that kind of work. But for the LGBT stuff, my background is in public health. I spent 7 years working for Doctors Without Borders, including in Chechnya and in Russian regions, and so my kind of contacts and knowledge of how to approach public health situations come from that. And again, you can work, you can be photography is a lot. If you're not an idiot, it's a lot easier. You can be discreet. You can get things done, and usually most interesting stuff from the perspective of documentary work happens not at big rallies or meetings, but in quieter places. And it's a question of building trust with your sources, and ultimately what you have is you have a reputation, and your reputation either opens doors or it doesn't. And if you're transparent and you're clear, I've kind of, for the most part, I've been more successful than not successful.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've actually been able to create some protections. Your reporting has actually helped people's safety. Some of your sources, if you could talk a little bit about
yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but it's rewarding when it does. A couple of people were able to secure. So like they were either able to get visas, or they used my work as part of their political, like a part of their asylum applications. And one guy even got a job in the States out of it. That was kind of nice. So I photographed him for a story. The story ran in Politica about him, and he was an asylum seeker. Like they used my work for that story, and the day he became legal, they hired him. Politico hired him to be a computer programmer, which was kind of cool. And it doesn't. Again, I don't want to make it sound like that's normal, but it happens once in a while, and it's not all doom and gloom, and it's much more rewarding than like a byline, because that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, that's pretty rewarding.
Yeah.
Job. Yeah. If you want to do the story on me, that would be really nice. If I could then get a job in Politico. So let's look at it.
We have to get you to Russia first.
Elena, you work a lot with the LGBT. You've done quite a lot of coverage of that as well, and you've actually been an activist on that issue. Have you had a problem of not being able to, or being able to safeguard your sources? Because that's always an issue. Your newspaper has resources that can protect you. You've got certain, but what about one's sources? Has that been an issue or not?
I didn't do a lot of coverage on LGBT. I'm an LGBT activist myself, and I try to separate my job from my activism. it's like old-fashioned, but I believe in that. But I cover this gay massacre in Chechnya, what happened like previous spring. Like then a lot of Chechen gays were detained and tortured and finally killed by Ramzan authorities. And yeah, it was a lot of measures to protect our sources. I mean, we really hide them in secret flats. And I mean, not actually us organized all the process of air protection, but LGBT.net, it's like the major LGBT organization in Russia, who organized the evacuation of Chechen gays, and more than 100 people were evacuated. And Elena Miloshina, I mentioned her previously, she covering Chechnya right now. She was the first who actually reported about the massacre. And it was really amazing example of cooperation, journalists and activists. Because like journalists report about that, and because we report about that, they stopped for a while the murders. So activists had the time to hide people and evacuate them. And
didn't she have to flee the country after that was published too?
Anna?
Yeah.
Elena?
Yeah.
For a while.
I mean, that's so...
Yeah, I mean, the point was after her article was published in main Moscow, in Grozny, 30,000 people had a meeting. It called like religious meeting, but it wasn't. And they made like a statement that it's gonna be revenge to the enemies, and it like was pretty clear threatened to Elena. So that's why Irina Gordienko, another girl who's reporting on Caucasus, and me, we jumped in, so we also write an article, so we showed not only Elena covers this topic. And then another journalist from another media jumped in as well. So, but yeah, Elena should leave the country for a while.
One peculiar footnote in relation to what's happening in our country here is, as a result of this, one of the things of what happened was Instagram banned Kadyrov, and you know it sounds like a joke, but he had huge following, and his team was posting all of this hatred.
I mean, he put Vladimir Kara-Murza, who was poisoned twice by the Russian government, in crosshairs in a video on his Instagram, and it stayed there for a long time.
So it's interesting how quickly an American company can ban a foreigner, but they take a lot longer for domestic politicians.
Yeah, and it's only a temporary suspension.
And it's not just anecdotal. Like Kadyrov was legitimately pissed. Like that was a big.
Well, he was always like it was him and his tiger, and then him like in his soccer gear.
That was like imagine Trump not being on Twitter. Imagine Twitter doing that. Like it was more powerful than local TV or anything like that, because Kadyrov is young, and that's how he spoke to, tens of thousands of like local or Chechens, not just in Chechnya, but if you had Chechen gays or Chechen activists in Europe, in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, without any subtleties, that's the platform Kadyrov used to, crosshairs and go after, and it had an effect.
Well, bravo Instagram.
Yeah.
Let's see how long it lasts.